Hi, I'm Tolu Tu, the author of Why and How Women Are Exploited by Men Worldwide. And what you're going to be listening to is Chapter 7, Are You on the Same Page? This is a chapter that I feel is very significant because oftentimes, if not most times, we end up in relationships and dealing with people who we were not on the same page with in the beginning. So, obviously, if the person who you're dealing with likes marshmallows and only marshmallows, and you like balloons, you're too far apart. And listen, ladies, folk, everybody, not just ladies, anybody, you are not going to be able to retrain a person. You're not going to be able to, more than likely, get them to where you think you would like for them to be. So, if possible, let's try to get people who are, if not exactly on the same page, they at least are on a page similar to what we are looking for in a person to have a relationship with. So I am going to now turn it over to your listening to Are You on the Same Page, Chapter 7 from my book, Why and How Women Are Exploited by Men Worldwide. And let me make sure I tell you this each of these chapters that you're listening to is the unedited uh, unedited book. It's the same information that's in the book, but it's a lot more expressive than what I have in the book. So enjoy. Don't forget, the book is available on Amazon. And if you have a Prime membership, you can download it for free. And only the people who subscribe to Author Tolu to channel are going to be notified by me personally when I'm going to have a promo where you can come and download the book for free. Thanks. Enjoy. Why and How Women Are Exploited by Men Worldwide. Chapter 7. Are you on the same page? Being on the same page means that you, as a female, and males that you are dealing with, or hoping to have a relationship with, or having a relationship with, have some basic things in common. One, the both of you want the same thing or very similar thing. Two, your perspective and outlook and attitude about how things are done and what they mean have some commonality. That is, if you get involved as a female with a guy who grew up seeing his mother be abused by her partner, then the chances that he is going to, at some point, start abusing you are pretty high. So if you're not looking for someone to
to abuse you and you're not, you know you deserve not to be abused, then you and that guy are not on the same page. If the guy doesn't respect women and you want to be respected, you and he are not on the same page. If he has told you in the very beginning, ladies, in the very beginning, I'm not interested in being a father. It doesn't matter his reason. It doesn't matter what you would like for him to be or how you feel about his being a father or not being a father. If the guy has told you in the very beginning, right up front, I don't want no baby, I'm not ready, I don't want to be a father, then you have an obligation to understand that if you want a baby or plan to get pregnant or allow yourself to get pregnant, plan or unplanned, you and the guy are not on the same page. If you are planning to, or on a regular basis, communicate with men that you did not know and had not had a relationship with prior to their going to prison, lady, and you're meeting a guy through a friend of a friend of a friend, or however you are meeting these guys that are in prison, and you're going to be his woman, and you have no history, no background, no involvement with prison life and the psychology, emotional and physical deprivation that most guys go through as a result of being in prison, whether they were innocent or not. If you don't know anything about that, and that's not what your background is, you just happen to be someone who was introduced to someone in prison, and you thought that here's someone that I can have a relationship with, even though it's not on a physical basis, and it may not be for 5 years, 3 years, or 20 years. But at least I know where that person is. They can make the collect calls to me from prison. I can visit them, and we can write. And I, as a female, have a lot more control than, or I think I have a lot more control, which is key, the word think I have a lot more control, because that person is in prison. I know where they are. I know what time they go to bed. I know pretty much what time they get up. And they have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to think about me. And that makes me real special. Ladies, you're not on the same page. If you don't have an understanding of prison culture, and prison culture doesn't leave the person when they come home for prison. They bring that culture with them. And you're probably not going to be on the same page unless you yourself is a part of that culture. The problem with not being on the same page is you don't have the same expectations. You don't see things the same way. You may look at the same item both of you may look at an apple, and one may see a round, shiny, red fruit, and the other person may see an old, worn-out pair of shoes. Now, when you're not on the same page, and you're that far apart, somebody is going to end up losing. They're going to lose, they're going to waste time, they're going to be frustrated. There are often going to be fights and arguments. It's not going to be enjoyable. You know, you'll spend a few moments of sex, of maybe great sex, and the rest of the time when you're not in bed, you're busy not being on the same page. When you go to a club and you meet a guy who has recently come to your country, and as soon as he comes over to your table or looks over at you at the bar sitting beside him and ask you your name and then ask you to marry him, and how, you know, he would love to marry you, ladies, you're probably not going to be on the same page, because that guy has an agenda. I mean, everybody has an agenda, but it's whether or not the agenda is palatable for you, or something that you may even want for yourself. If someone meets you and wants to marry you right away, the very same night, or within the first week, the chances are that that guy is looking to get a green card. Now, that's fine to marry him for the green card. If you understand that if that's what's acceptable to you, you understand that, and you accept the fact that this guy is marrying me so that he can have a shortcut, not to just citizenship, but to residency. And in the United States, the only thing that you cannot do as a resident that you can do as a United States citizen is to be president of the United States. I mean, 99.9% of the people in the United States can't even be president, even though they were born here, and never will be able to be president. So the point that I'm making here is just how important that residency, often called the green card, is in the United States. And having a shortcut to it is important. So if a person can marry you on paper, put a phone in your house, maybe not come there or stay there, or maybe come there, stay there, and even have 4 or 5 kids with you. If that is not what you are looking towards on a short-term basis, because that person who has married you for the shortcut to residency as in the country, then that person is only going to do what they need to do and deal with you, and maybe even be really nice to you, to the extent that it will shortcut this residency that they want and need, that's very valuable to them. Very valuable. They probably already have, if they don't have a fiance, a wife, where they left, then, which is not all that likely, but let's say they don't, for some reason or the other. Their relatives are back there making introductions, and depending on the culture that they came from, may have more input into making those decisions for that person and arranging someone for that person than you ever could have imagined. If you don't know about this and you don't understand this, and this is not what you're looking for on a long-term basis in getting involved with the person, with that guy, then you're not on the same page. If you don't have any children, you've not had your first child, and you meet a guy who has already had 2, 3, 5, whatever the number is, of children with various women, you and that guy are not on the same page. And you would be better advised not to even get involved with him. Because the fact that that guy has gone around with different women and they have shared having a child together, you're starting off with a deficit, okay? Each one of those children have to be provided and supported. Each one of those children's mother have to have, or at least should have, along with the child and children, contact with this fellow. I mean, you're stepping in a big old deep cesspool, okay? Now, some people might say, well, gee, why would you say a woman, that these women and these children that this guy has had with these various women, to get yourself involved with the guy is stepping in a cesspool. I'm not saying that those women and children are cesspools, but I'm saying that when you get involved with that guy and all that he brings, all that baggage that he's bringing to the table before you, who've never even gotten started in life, has an opportunity to deal with him on a one-on-one basis, from time commitment, money commitment, just emotional freedom. When someone has all of that kind of package that they're bringing on their back with them in their backpack, you and that guy are not on the same page. And if you get involved with him and make the same mistake that the other 3, 4, 5, or 10 women made by allowing yourself to share a child with him, then you're going to find yourself fighting mentally, emotionally, and verbally with that guy for your baby, and in terms of him being able to give him himself in time, in terms of just positioning your child. You're going to, sooner or later, even if you never meet the mothers, you're going to begin to resent them. He's going to have to talk to them, ladies, because they have a child together. And, there are all kinds of things that's going to be going on that sooner or later you may accept it to keep the guy, but it's not really what you want, because what happened was you got involved with someone who you and they were not on the same page, and you never should have been dealing with that person in the first place. He was not. If he already has kids with different women out there, and you come to the relationship and that's not where you are, then that guy's not on the same page with you. You have involved yourself with someone where for a long time there are going to be so many other issues that you don't need to deal with because there's already too many issues in a relationship to work through. Why go and get yourself involved with something and get involved with people and make those lifetime commitments with someone who's not on the same page that you're on? And if they should, by chance, come closer to or being on the page with you, I mean, by the time that happens, no telling how many scars, emotional, mental, psychological scars that you will have gotten that no cosmetic surgery or psychologist will ever be able to work through to the point of getting you back to where you were before you got involved with this person that was not on the same page with you. Ladies, if the guy lives in his mother's basement, okay, if he is in prison and you are meeting him through a mutual friend, unless this is your background in terms of the prison culture, you're probably not on the same page. One of the things, I served on grand jury only once in my life, and there were a couple of things that left quite an impression on me as a result of serving as a grand juror. The one that I'm going to talk about here is that there were, I guess we had maybe 135 cases that had been presented for a grand jury indictment. Out of that 135 cases, I would say probably 100 of those cases in some form or the other involved women being victimized. And then out of the 100, the thing that left me with my mouth hanging open is that there were a very large number of cases where a male child under 12 years old, anywhere from 4 to 12 years old, had been sexually molested by the mother or the grandmother or the grandmother's boyfriend. And in some instances, even their husband. And in all of those cases where this male child had been molested by the mom's boyfriend, the mother had met the guy while he was in prison. She didn't know him before then. Somebody else introduced her to the guy. When the guy got out of prison, of course, when you come out of prison, you don't really have any resources. So you either live on the street or in the shelter or some family member. And oftentimes, the family don't want to be bothered with you because of all the issues that they've dealt with you before you went to prison. So then these women that you've met while you were in prison is where these guys look forward to going to live with them. And these women always have children. They always have children. No children with this guy necessarily, but other children. So then they take in this stranger into their home with their children. And the guy's been in prison 5 years, 3 years. That's a whole nother culture and world in terms of what happens to men in prison, how they are damaged in a number of ways, emotionally, psychologically, themselves, and but most of all, the point I'm trying to make here, for whatever reason and what all that happens, these guys do not often find looking towards a male, and specifically a male child, as wrong or objectionable. So all of these women whose children, whose sons had been molested, they are the ones that brought the predator into their homes. And in this case, it was unbelievable that the women didn't fear or have any apprehension about bringing a convict, ex or whatever, into their home with their children, whether it was male or female. I mean, it was, in every case, those boys had been molested by the man that the mother brought into the home and introduced to the child. Or they would let the guy babysit their children. I mean, they would be in the home. I mean, in other words, when they brought that man into their house, they gave that man access to their children. It was just incredible to me. I just sat there. It was unbelievable. And you know what else the ladies always said? These mothers always said, when any juror asked the question about why did they, bring this guy into their home, they always says, well, I never thought he would do that. And I'm saying to myself, because, you can't really express yourself and say, at least I tended not to. Some of the other jurors did express themselves, but, my opinions and my philosophies and what I believed about life, I didn't think that was my role to sit there and lecture these witnesses on that. But I certainly was thinking, what the hell did you have on your mind when you met somebody that had already been put away because they had violated something and someone in the general population to the point that they had to be sent to prison for it? What do you mean you wasn't thinking when you brought this person into your home? That you had never even, these women had never even seen these guys in any setting other than the prison visitor's room, which is a very controlled situation with, and everybody has to be quiet and on their good behavior, or even their visiting privileges will be taken away from them. So, in an artificial setting like that, where you have gone in to visit this guy who's in prison, and when he comes out, you're going to bring him into your home with your children, and all of these kids were the ones who are going to be psychologically and emotionally scarred for the rest of their lives as a result of this woman being on or dealing with somebody that was not on the same page. That guy wasn't on the same page with you. If he was in prison, even though he's in prison, he's looking for a couple of things. He's looking for emotional and financial support while he's in prison. And that's the same thing he's looking for after he get out of prison, ladies. So you're probably not on the same page. If he's just freaking and you're just in love, are you on the same page? When people are not on the same page, one of the parties have one set of things that they're feeling and believing and positions that they're coming from, and the other person or persons are having either a different perception of the situation or totally, or there is not the exact perception of the situation from the other parties. So what is often termed as you have communicated, but the communication has been decoded or received differently based on the person's prior experience, background, or ability to decipher what you've said. What I do often, especially if it's a real important subject on the table in communicating with someone else, is to, as an example, say, John, I would like to spend Saturdays together dancing. And then I will wait and let John either say whatever it is that he's going to say back to me. Then after he says something back, or if he doesn't say, either way, if he doesn't say something back, or after he's said or responded to my statement, what I will say to John is this: John, would you tell me what my saying that I'd like for us to spend Saturdays dancing, would you repeat that back to me in terms of what you heard and what you understand that little short statement meant? Would you please help me to make sure that and I'll put the weight on me, that I'm communicating well and that you're able to, that I'm expressing myself such that what I have said, I need to know what you heard based on what I've said. Now that's a very simplistic statement, but you probably wouldn't necessarily always do it for something just as short. But it's a good idea to test this with people, and I use the name John, obviously pertaining to a male, but this applies to everybody. This applies to subordinates, this applies to students, this applies to your children, this applies to your girlfriends, it applies to the group in your club, because what you thought you have said and how you've expressed it, a lot of the misunderstanding that cause people to not be on the same page is because what you thought you communicated and what the person took from your communication were not the same things. So obviously you were not on the same page. Being on the same page is the very beginning of diminishing and reducing and hopefully eliminating stress, drama, trauma, and misunderstandings. Without being on the same page, your life is going to be full of that. And you're going to be frustrated and frustrate other people and not be able to understand and figure out what the problem is. And it could be something as the most important thing, and that is being on the same page. Being on the same page also means that if you have someone coming to you continuously, that whenever that person comes to you, they've got bukus of problems, drama, and they want to vent and share all of that with you every time you see them, and that's the only time you talk to them on the phone or hear from them, unless you are being paid or have an advice column or is a psychologist, then you and that person are not on the same page. Unless you're doing the same thing back with them. If they tell you all their problems and vent, and this is a form of release, and you're able to do that back with them continuously, and therefore you don't have to go crazy, fine. Then the two of you on the same page. But if the only time you hear from that person or see that person is when they've got problems and things that are negative that they want to go on and on about, you're not on the same page with that person. That person is using up all of your positive energy and resources. That person is a drain. They are a cancer. You're not going to be able to help that person if this is an ongoing, continuous thing. This is a person who needs clinical help, at least. And you're not going to be, and you're not a professional, and being a friend is being there for a person. But if a person is continuously having the same or very similar issues and drama, then you must restrict your being available to that person, lest you will have all of your energy and resources and upbeat, pleasant outlook drained. It may not happen the first 20 times, but over the long haul, it's going to have an impact on you. And there are some people who not only have one drain like this on their energy in terms of relationships with other people. Some people have 5, 10, 15, or 20 people, or everybody they know is like this. And what that says is that those people have chosen you because of your being level-headed, calm, planted, sympathetic, understanding person. They've chose you specifically for those qualities that you have, and they intend to use it all up. And once you no longer are willing to be the person who's dumped on all the time with all of their issues, they probably are not going to. You're probably not going to even hear from them again.